All right, we are recording. And 3, 2, 1. Hey, pal.
Asshole. Hey, Jason, how are you? I'm drinking my Diet Pepsi right now.
It's the Powell and his pal show, back with you for another round, a third round this week, an unusual third round, which is brought to you by us, of course. Of course, you're listening to This Show is a Joke. It is with Jason and Keith and Jason, and we are here to entertain you for about an hour. And we have a variety of things to talk about this week, including the weather, which has actually gotten warmer. I think we're going to bitch about the weather each time because of golf, right?
You know, we're supposed to get off work early today.
Are we?
And I plan to mow my lawn, maybe naked. I haven't decided yet. Maybe naked.
All right, seriously, don't put that in my head right now. That's
You're welcome.
Well, it's not even. It's probably your neighbors, really. I think that you probably want to move your mic back a little bit too. You're a little hot.
Am I? Well, thank you very much.
That's better. That's better. All right. Yeah. So, mowing your lawn naked, is this something you've done before? And do you have all your toes?
I have all my toes. I've never done it completely naked, but living in Southwest Oklahoma, where sometimes it's the hottest spot in the U.S. during the summer, I've been tempted. I never even got down to my tidy whities, but it's going to be one of those kind of shows today. Apparently,
that answers the boxers or briefs question right out of the gate, doesn't it?
Actually, because I switched a long time ago. I switched, and I think a girlfriend at the time made me switch, and so there you have it.
A girlfriend at the time made me switch. The story of every man on earth, ladies and gentlemen, who had a girlfriend. So there's a lot to talk about. Today was the first day that I had to actually wear the mask, right? So we went to the commissary and we went to the shopette. Well, I went to the shopette once, but that was when I was still carrying around the Mean Streak Y&T shirt.
Right.
Which looks stupid. And I was hoping I could fashion it into some sort of, balaclava and, make it look very cool. But that just wasn't going to happen with any kind of alacrity. So I fortunately, Dee Dee bought some masks from a woman who puts them together in housing. And she did a great job. But today was the first day I actually got to sort of see the whole mask vibe in action at the commissary. And it was kind of weird walking around and seeing everybody wearing a mask. It was just, what's the word? Unsettling? That's a good word. Unsettling in a way. And I'm not sure why.
It is. And, some of the things I've seen among my friends, joking, not joking, is that it kind of gives you a sense of, I'm afraid to wear a black mask because I don't want to be considered a thief or a robber or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I wonder how many people have gone up to a cashier or something and they're like, give me all your money. And they're like, no, just wear your mask and stop.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't joke about that shit, please. Don't joke.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I've got a bomb when you're getting on an airplane or something. It's really stupid.
Or coming through a gate, yeah.
Right. So I think part of the interesting thing today was, of course, everyone's wearing a mask. And the lines at the commissary today are long. Of course, it's a German holiday.
Right.
And so the big long lines, but they move very quickly. So even with the spacing, no video. I like Keith's typing in the background. Like, you're not supposed to hear what he's typing, but what he asked me is there no video? And there is not. This is just, you're just going to have to not look at one another.
We're using a new program, and I've got to get used to it.
If Keith sounds better, it's because I took the time to make him sound better. But he can't see me anymore.
You can tell it's a damn Friday, can't you?
And by the way, F you both. I bet I could shoot a 68 if I wanted to. Anyway, so
I don't think you could.
I think I could probably do it if I focused. I can do whatever I want. By the way, if you've never had an olive stuffed with a red pepper, they are amazing. That's my snack right now. Anyway, so I got distracted. So in the commissary, big long line. So all these people are wearing the mask. And the thing I noticed about wearing the mask is, of course, since you're breathing into the mask, all that heat and moisture, right?
Yes.
That's just sort of building up. And it's not like you're spitting into it. It's just the regular moisture that you breathe out, the kind that steams up your windows in the car and on and on and on. That is what, I'm sort of feeling there. So I didn't like that. That was irritating, but when in Rome, right? So we had a nice encounter with one of the assistant store manager's spouse. Well, the assistant store manager who used to be in Garmisch with us, he and his wife, we used to know them very well, and we still do. So it's always good to see Noah and Zoe and those folks. But it was again, it wasn't even unsettling is too strong. It was just different. It was weird.
It's weird. That's
right?
exactly what it is. Yeah.
You've been out though, right? You've been to the commissary and such.
I jumped out at lunchtime yesterday and went in and not well. I guess I went. When did I go? Monday, but I also went yesterday. So Monday was when this was first talked about, I believe. And so, there were a few people. They weren't enforcing it or anything like that. I just ran to the BX. That's what I did after work. And they are now. Yes, they are. In fact, I got told at the gate yesterday, you need to put on your mask.
So I was told the cop was much nicer to me. I didn't have it on. I was throwing my IDs out, of course. And he says, sir, just to let you know, I'll encourage you that by Monday, you have to be wearing your mask. I said, thank you very much. What else can you do, right?
Well, that's the way he said it to me too. I just made it sound worse.
He made it sound worse. You can't do that. They're nice kids. They are.
They are. They're doing their job and they're doing it well.
Speaking of the kids at the gate, they're kids because we're older and they're younger and they're great and they're doing this hapless duty like we did the story about the cleaning thing and the other things that these privates and younger folks are doing. And so the other thing that they're doing here, and we may have talked about this, I don't know, but they are screening people at the gates. So most of the gates, I think, the Air Force gates, they're not doing it, but the Army gates, and there is a difference, and a lot of people think we're just one military community. We're not. There are two camps, Air Force and Army. They own different things. If you go through an Air Force gate, it's done one way. For instance, what Keith and I just talked about, go through an Air Force gate, you have to wear a mask. If you're going through an Army gate, you don't have to wear a mask. And the Army gates are run by a civilian contractor called Pond. And the Air Force gates are run, by the 569th sort of blended security forces squadron. But most of the time, they're airmen security forces troops. So anyway, I went to get the screening the last couple days. And the word that they've added to their screening questions that's interesting to me?
What's that?
Secretion. Have you been around any secretions?
So many ways to interpret that.
And I'm like, are you thinking that, like, I've got to remember phlegm? Or I've got to remember snot, like, coming out, like, oh, man, you know what?
It's allergy season.
I wipe my kid's nose with my hand. Fuck, should I back up? Or are you going to raise the barrier on me? Or, so we won't talk about that either. But so secretion has become part of their screening vocabulary, and it fascinates me because secretion is a good word like moist. A lot of people just dislike the word moist because what it implies. I'm not sure what it implies in their head, but maybe they don't like being humid or they don't like being like getting out of the pool. I mean, I could think of some other dirty ones that we're not going to get into, obviously, but like ball sweat and what is it? Swamp ass.
Well, glad we didn't get into it. Okay.
Oh, see, we didn't get into it at all. And so, but they don't like secretion like they don't like moist. But it's just funny to hear. They're like, do you have COVID-19? That's always my favorite because I wonder how honest people are. Do you have COVID-19? No.
I wonder that too. They've got to go down this list of questions. They have to ask the same question every time, or give or take. Whatever's on the sheet, they have to ask to every person that comes through the gate.
Right.
So I have to wonder, do they? Of course, they get tired of it. And I'll tell you what. I make sure that I say, hey, thanks for what you guys are doing. I know it's a crappy job, and everybody's been great. And of course, they're all young kids.
They're all young kids,
and they've been
and
great.
They're doing this as an additional duty, and it's a shit job. Yeah. And they know that they, every once in a while, they're going to get somebody who's like, yeah, I do have a fever. And then they're going to go, oh, shit, what do I have to do? Oh, yeah, I got to flip to that second page and tell them to go home or whatever, right?
Or vice versa, where somebody makes joke about it
Right.
or lies. Yeah, I've had a cough. Well, you need to go, and they don't understand what happens after that. That
That's
kind of
like
thing.
do you have anything then in your bags that wasn't packed by you? Yeah, I've got a bomb. And your
Yep,
ass
did
is
you?
going to the place where they stick a stick up your ass and get you to not do that again. That's where you're going
Definitely
when
a
you do
Friday
dumb shit like
episode.
that.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, I mean, people who do that, they get taken to that little room and they basically like, okay, tell us about your bomb, dummy. And I don't really have a bomb. I was making a joke.
Right.
But you saw the sign in big 72-point letters in the front that said, don't make jokes about making bombs, right? I'm just a dude. All right, well, bend over because we're going to put this thing up your ass and make you never do it again. Or whatever they do. Because it's just dumb. It's a felony. It's literally if they decide to try you for it, it's a felony. And, again, these kids should be cut a break. These soldiers, these people who have pledged to serve in the army, to do whatever is necessary. This is one of those things that the leadership has deemed as necessary. And again, I think generally people have been nice to them, and I've been nice to them. I always joke though, like they'll go in and say, "Do you have COVID-19?" No. The second question I think is, have you been around anybody with COVID-19? And I always say, "Do you have it?" And they go, "No." I'm like, "Okay, I'm good then. No." And they kind of laugh, and it breaks up the moment. And then you answer the third one, and then you go in. But yeah, secretion. Are there any words that really bother you? That you're like, you hear it and you go,
No,
don't say that.
I don't think so. I have some friends that don't like moist. Oh, yes, there is too.
Uh-oh.
Um,
I worked it out of you. Good.
when I was when I was the editor of the Fort Sill Cannoneer, which is not the name of it anymore,
Cannoneer.
I had an employee who was kind of like a female version of me as far as our mouths are concerned, that kind of thing, and
Oh,
our language. And one
okay.
thing that when my daughter was in utero, you read that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and the word I came across that made me go,
Okay.
mucus plug.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's not a good one at all. And so this employee was pregnant. I mean, we got along great, just even today. But she would say, hey, Keith, at least once a week. Hey, Keith, do you need me to tell you about my mucus plug? Absolutely no way in hell you need to tell me about
Oh,
your mucus plug.
mucus plug.
And then when
Wow.
she finally had the baby, she said, Keith, I tried, but the doctors would not let me save the mucus plug for
Right.
you.
Right.
Blech.
Yeah, that sounds like something from like Saw or something, the mucus plug thing that like hostile, like, okay, we're going to take your mucus plug or something. Yeah, you're right. That's a good choice.
If anybody, I mean, that will make me gag. If somebody comes up and says, hey, mucus plug, Courtney, damn it, it's your fault.
Your
So
last name was Damn It?
it is now.
I don't think it is. The one thing that we've been talking about a little bit and that now we get to address on the show because I put it in my list of things to talk about is the phrase, the phrase I'm going to talk about, don't you? That's overwrought. That they're using it for everything.
Does it start with an A?
Yes.
Oh.
Actually, it starts with an I because you start with in.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Or out of, right?
Out of, yes.
So Keith and I are doing this podcast in an abundance of caution because we are doing this from our separate locations, 12 miles, 14 kilometers apart. But that phrase has been attached to everything. I'm actually surprised at some of where they attach it onto. Like, I don't remember. It was some kind of weird like AFES commercial, which is the military store, just to keep people who are new listeners in there, or a commissary thing, or just like voter registration, and then la 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 la. But in an abundance of caution, we have blah 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 blah, and it's just baffling how that is. I mean, it's in the lexicon, and yes, I understand how it's meant to be. Why that clause is projected onto whatever you do it. You're trying to say, hey, look, we are taking every bit of safety. But this thing has been jackhammered. Like, it's like if you were tandem parachuting and your chute didn't go off and you fell, and you just hit the ground and the dude on top of you just fucked you into the earth 6 feet. That's how bad an abundance of caution has become. It is just overwrought. And I think we're reaching the tail end of it, but I'm not sure.
I saw
So
one of the AFN spots, the public service announcements last night. No kidding, last night. In an abundance of caution, and I just said to myself out loud because there's nobody else that lives with me. I said, in abundance of caution, in an abundance of caution, I'm going to go pee, and got up during the commercial break and left.
I just think at this point, everyone knows, as I open my bag of jelly beans, I think everybody knows, right? Everybody knows that we're doing everything out of an abundance of caution. We're not doing it out of like, you know what? This is fear factor. We're just going to see how far we can get before something explodes.
Yeah.
We're not doing it because of that. We're doing it because we're trying to take care of people. And, one of the things that's really been sort of troubling me is I've taken my own advice, of course, and I have for a while, which is I've tried to limit my exposure to social media, especially Twitter.
I have to.
But
I'm going to have to start backing off at least Facebook because, oh my God.
Right. So, I mean, but you do go to Facebook because you want to see how your friends are coping. You want to check in on your relatives, whatever. That's sort of the more intimate of the social media. And I'm sure Facebook's aware of that. So I've got one or two friends, but one in particular who's been a real troll lately. I mean, just a real sort of just wants to, kind of say, oh, yeah, we better not go to stores anymore because we'll catch the virus, or we better not print books anymore because they might have viruses on them and we should just go eat. And he's doing that sort of language over and over, right? He's that guy right now. And I've never...
Is it a mutual friend?
No, it's not a mutual friend. It's somebody I knew from a previous, I hate saying assignment, but from a previous place I lived.
Okay.
And it's sad to me because I think prudent people who don't have an agenda can see that everything that's being done is to lessen the severity and the spread of this thing. Just as when it was done with the Spanish flu 100 and odd years ago, when they closed things and did things. And I think part of this is because this person has a business and that business could be harmed in the next couple of months. And I understand that. But trolling in the way that it's being done and the way it's not helpful to anybody. And it just looks like you're being, frankly, I don't want to use the word, but I mean, it just looks like you're being grumpy and you're just, everybody understands. And people are trying to say, are you okay? Are you, this isn't like you. This isn't, but he keeps persisting. So I had to unfollow it because every other post was something like, we better not go to the Olympics. Everyone will get the virus there. And that sort of cynical sort of way.
You can call a troll in my Oklahoma education. I call it being a dick. So that you're just being an ass. You're being an ass. You get joy from being an ass. And that just makes you a dick.
And look, I love the guy. And I think this is a temporary, sorry, I'm eating jelly beans, folks.
Everybody can be a dick. It's possible.
We all go through short phases where things around us, we are affected and we cannot rule our emotions as we usually might. And we say and do things for a temporary period of time, like a day or like a couple of days until that condition that is pressing on us goes away. And then we're generally back to normal. This has been going on for probably a couple of weeks, though. So to me, this is more agenda driven or something. I don't know. Again, I don't want to lay judgment on the guy, but it doesn't do anybody any good to troll anything. It's not like you saying, oh, we shouldn't do this is going to mean that, okay, yeah, you're right. Let's go right back to doing X, or, oh, we shouldn't close all the beaches. Okay, yeah, you're right. Let's open up all the beaches again, or let's open up all the restaurants. It's not like that's going to fix things. It's really just contributing to the irritation factor and the white noise of not fixing things. And that's always, it's never good.
Well, I am all for an even spirited conversation. I welcome that. Over this last 2 months we've been dealing with this here in Europe. A lot of people, I don't think this is going to be as bad as people think it is, and I say, hey, look, you know what?
That's different.
The crew I work with here have been here working with this for the last, at the time, 3 weeks, whatever, looking it in the eye. And it is bad. And it's going to be bad in the States. And that's why it throws me when I see news outlets saying people think the peak is, or experts say the peak is near, when we haven't even been told we've hit the peak here in Europe.
Right. And
So
look, I don't even have an issue with people who want to say, I don't think it's as bad as it seems. That's not a troll.
that's not a
That's
troll.
just stating,
Yes,
that's stating things from their hill,
it's
right?
an
Their vantage
opinion.
point.
Yes.
They're looking out, examining their concentric circles and going, well, I'm not sick. My family's not sick. I notice that many others around me aren't sick. It seems like the many others who are around me who form my community would be fine without all these restrictions. I get that. It's sort of a, what is it called? Not an illogical fallacy, but it doesn't make sense in the greater good. It just means that your foxhole is unaffected by fire at this time, whereas the majority of foxholes are taking fire from the enemy all the time. And I just think it's a different attitude. I don't have a problem with. I don't think we should be taking. What I have a problem with is the cynicism of, I guess we shouldn't be going to the beach now, or I guess we shouldn't be reading books now, or whatever it might be. That to me is troublesome in a way that doesn't make any sense for me. So, what do you want to talk about?
You know what? This is the reason I'm sitting here instead of in the office. Not yesterday, but this month is my 34th anniversary
Wow,
of being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
wow, 34 years. Wow.
34 years. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
And my dad was TDY. I want to say out west somewhere. My dad was an air traffic controller in the Air Force for more than 30 years. And this particular assignment, when we were at Offutt Air Force Base, he was TDY a lot, so he was gone. And I had been for about 2 weeks. My vision was blurry, and I'd always prided myself, and my friends loved having me in the car because I had 2015 vision, and I could see the light bar or the round ball, the gumball machine on top of a police car a mile away when we
Eagle
were
Eye Powell.
cruising, yeah. So like Hawkeye. But so my vision was blurry. I had dry skin. I couldn't stop eating. And I was probably getting up, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a night to pee, as
Always the
opposed to
same.
now.
Right.
But so my mom made an appointment at the Air Force Hospital. We went in, and the doc said, "You know what? I really can't find anything wrong with him."
Yeah.
So she said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And I found this out later. There I am sitting on the exam table. They went outside, and apparently what she did was tell the doctor, "Look, diabetes is on both sides of the family. My aunt has it and had it since she was a teenager. My uncle had it later on in life." And
Mhm.
so, they came in and said, and this was an older, I want to say flight surgeon type doc, but he pediatric, or not a pediatric. That's what it was. And he said, "You know what? We'll send him to the lab, and we'll just do some tests." Okay.
Right. Right.
So, I
And
mean,
diabetes test is actually quite expensive. It's like a $650 or $700 test, as I recall. There's medical folks who probably refute that, but it's an expensive test. It's not like regular blood tests aren't as expensive. Here comes my 5 years of VA coming out. Not as expensive, but diabetes test is kind of like they have to. You sort of have to make that happen. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt
you're exactly right. It's and one of the main tests they do is a hemoglobin A1C. But the just to preface this, the normal blood sugar for a non-diabetic is somewhere between, when you prick your finger, and you always see a diabetic do that, or in my case now, I have the little thing on my arm because it's been 34 years since I first started doing it, is
you. Hmm.
between 80 and 120, 150, something like that. Well, when all of a sudden this doctor that I had been talking to for the last hour disappeared, and in comes this female captain. Says, "I'm Dr. Grothy." How do I still remember her name? Dr.
Because it was a
Grothy.
big day in your
It
life. Of course, you
was a
know her.
big day. Dr. Grothy, I'm the pediatrician here at the hospital, one of the pediatricians here at the hospital. I'm 15 years old, by the way. And said, "We're going to admit him to the ICU." And his blood sugar was 699,
Right.
and I
Wow.
didn't. Of course, at that moment, I didn't know anything. My mom went pale,
Right.
and I may tear up in this. My mom felt so guilty because
Mm.
I'm her son,
Right.
and so she pulled the doc outside in the hallway, Dr. Grothy, and said, "Now, are we talking about full blown diabetes?" No, I'm sorry, this was right there next to me. Are we talking about full blown diabetes? I don't know what she meant by that. Maybe type 2, which is I'm going to make a lot of people mad when I say this, but what I call diabetes light, and
Probably meant like, will my son lose a leg or
right.
something like
I mean, is
that,
he going
right?
to have to
Yes.
take shots, or is this something he control by diet or something like that?
Right.
And Dr. Grothy stood there and said, "Yes, ma'am. At this point, we are." So I spent 4 days, or I'm sorry, five. What am I saying here? 5 days, 4 nights in the hospital in the ICU. Not only getting my body back in shape, I gained 6 pounds the first night by sheer fluids going back in me. I was so
Wow.
dehydrated. So it's and then they had to teach me how to inject myself. The
Right.
same thing I'm still doing today. 34 years later, even though there's been an advent of different types of medical
Hmm.
diabetic treatments and things like that.
Right.
I have diabetes is an important. It is my life. Uh, uh,
Well, it's not your life. It certainly is an important factor, and I'm not trying to diminish what you're saying, and I know where you are with it, but I mean, it definitely a part of your life. But I mean, I'm part of your life.
Yeah. Uh, yes, you are. No, well,
Man,
and I don't.
now I'm
Now, the
hurt.
difference is between
I
you and
want to talk more.
diabetes. No, no, no. The difference between you and diabetes is I don't do a thing without thinking of how it's going to affect
Yeah,
my
no,
diabetes.
I understand. I understand. I was.
You, I think of a lot, of course, but not everything.
We're not going to get it back to a conversation about your mouth again, are we?
No. So anyway, happy 34th diabetes anniversary to me,
Well,
and
well, let me take a shot at this. I
go
think it
ahead.
is sort of happy because at least you discovered it, right? And your parents were, and the doctors and people discovered it. And at least for 34 years, you're still here. You have head, shoulders, knees, and toes all together. You've been able to management, and it's discouraging, but you're here and you're in Germany. You're a place you wanted to be. And I'm happy about that. And I think,
Ah,
it is kind of a happy 34th. So there you go.
well, no, and that's exactly the way I look at it. I don't let diabetes control me. I control my diabetes, give or take. And I have all my fingers, all my toes. Wow, things are just
I know.
pinging. Put that on silent. And but I've procreated. I have a beautiful daughter who's set to graduate
You
college.
procreated?
I did,
That's
and um, you gonna laugh at that?
no, no. The choice of vocabulary word is interesting to me.
Well, there.
Most people aren't. You would probably say fathered,
I'm going through my quick mental
sired, even maybe.
Rolodex of who's
Yeah.
who's going to listen to this, and
Oh, Roger that. Okay, I'm
and
tracking.
so anyway, no, I have a beautiful daughter who's set to graduate college after 3 years.
Hi,
Later
Cassidy.
this month, Cassidy, and she's set to make her mark in the world. And I couldn't
Right.
ask for anything. That is the reason my heart
Exactly.
beats, and I couldn't ask for
Exactly.
anything else. I'm other than I wish I could play golf today.
Yeah. Well, with me, and it again. It's probably helped you focus a little more. It's probably given you a little more drive. So none of those things are bad. Um. So we're on the heels of Easter here.
Yes.
Switching gears, and so did you do anything as a kid big for Easter, or did you just do kind of the usual stuff, or what are some of your Easter memes?
No, the Easter Bunny visited us overnight, a little bit like Santa Claus, if you will.
Overnight. Interesting.
Filled the Easter basket. So Sunday morning we got up and saw what we had. Tried to do,
Right.
usually try to do a nothing big, nothing large, not like Christmas, but and then tried to do something. Had a usually a great dinner or brunch, if you will, within the family. Uh,
Hmm.
So I've never been very religious. So I know what Easter is. I surprise a lot of people by my Bible knowledge, but I don't claim to know every word in the Bible. I'm
People are like,
never.
what did you say?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't go Leviticus in here. Nobody
Right.
goes full Leviticus.
That's right. Nobody goes full Leviticus. But yeah, it's Easter is an important date to a lot of people.
It's the
How
big
about
one of the big
you?
two for Catholics and many Christians. Easter Christmas, right? If you're an Easter Christmas Catholic, that was always a big
Yes.
deal to me when I was growing up. I mean, hearing that, and certainly I think my parents were, or at least my mom, she was an Easter Christmas Catholic. My stepdad, I think, was Presbyterian. So, I mean, but none of us were very religious to begin with. My mom sort of fell out with the Catholic Church when I was a teenager, anyway. But there are some most sort of homogenous things that go with Easter anyway, right? Like coloring eggs,
Right.
Easter egg hunts, baskets full of chocolate, things like that, people in rabbit suits, none of which correlate to the resurrection of Christ in any way, shape, or form. But, we lean on the idea that some of what we're entrenched in is that, and some of what we're entrenched in is, from pagan worship or Wiccan or whatever it is. So there's always been this kind of cross pollination of we can have that and this, and everything's fine. We can have a Christmas tree and we can celebrate the birth of, the birth of Christ, whatever it is. Of course, we didn't really do anything for Passover. We probably should have had like a small Seder or something, but we did not do that. But we did recognize the day. If you've never done Passover or been with a Jewish family or a Jewish household that does Passover, it's actually pretty cool. The first Passover I ever did, I had a fantastic sort of guide, a guy named Jay Friedman, and he explained every bit of Passover, which I thought was very cool. So you understand why you're slouching in your chair. You understand why you dip twice. You understand why there's a shank bone on the plate, and this is on the plate, and this happens at this time, and why the kids go look for the unleavened bread. And it's really cool. So it's always nice when these are sort of the I don't want to say happy holidays, but these are holidays that you can kind of go, okay, no real attachment. Everybody likes to give eggs and Easter baskets and stuff. Christmas and those kinds of things are always a bit more commercial, so they're always a bit more hectic to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I think Easter is much more accessible in that I'll just give my kid a chocolate bunny and be done with it.
Now, is Passover, and I'm going to show my ignorance here, is Passover
Right.
the long meal where you have like 12
Yes.
different courses or
Yes.
whatever it is? Okay. I have done one of those. The
But the 12 different courses suck.
I wasn't
They
going to
do.
say that.
But they purposefully suck because that's the meaning of the
Right.
Passover until the end, and then you eat brisket and you do some other things that sort of, okay, now we can we eat. But Passover is like, now you're going to eat this onion. Okay, now you're going to eat this unleavened bread. If you've never had unleavened bread, just go ahead and cut a section off of your Amazon box and stuff that in your mouth. Basically the same thing. I just bought some actually. And Dee Dee's like, why did you buy that? I said, because you can spread peanut butter on it and eat peanut butter legally without feeling guilty of just sticking your hand in the jar and scooping it into your mouth. So the matzah helps relay the peanut butter from the jar to my mouth. But yeah, you're right. It's the holiday of many meals, as it were, or little bits of meals. It's almost like tapas. It's like Jewish tapas. There you go. You're welcome, fellow Jewish community.
Yes. Let's see. Of course, what we do, I was putting out the information, and the girlfriend, I wanted to know. She's very into religion and wanted to know what that was about. So,
right.
So I asked the gentleman. He was the AFES general manager there at Fort Sill, who was putting this on. Do you mind if I come and bring a guest? He said, no, absolutely. And so we sat through all of that and did the whole thing, and it was educational.
Yeah, and kudos to Jay Friedman, who I mentioned earlier, because I went to a couple of his, and part of that was he invited all of these young airmen, all of these Jewish airmen who might be new to the area or something. And when you're at Robins Air Force Base, which is in the middle of Georgia, the first thing you think is, I bet there's a huge Jewish community here, which is not what you think at all. You think, I wonder if there's a synagogue within 50 miles of here. And it turns out there's 3, actually.
Oh, wow.
And they're all within 14 miles of where we lived in Robins. So that made it pretty convenient. But what he did is once he knew about these airmen who were coming in who were of the faith, he would send out invitations and say, "Hey, he had a giant house. He was a very generous, warm guy, and he's, hey, come to my house. We're having a seder. Just let me know in advance so I could know how many places to sit." And I think the seder I went to had like 20, 25 people, huge room with a huge long table, and then the next one I went to the next year had like 18 or 20. So it was he was a big Star Trek: The Next Generation fan. He's still alive, I mean, but he's not dead. But I mean, there was just that's a good memory for me, right? That's a really good sort of that's one of those things that kind of anchors Easter and Passover for me is that, and a few other things. So I'm sure that when that manager invited you to his place, I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Oh, let me back up. I don't want to say. Oh, I'm getting feedback here. Is not even that. I'm hearing myself, and that's worse.
On this end,
it was at the chapel, so it was everybody who is. We put out this information. The Jewish Seder is this time, this place. So that's right. I went to that. So so I was there with other people who I did not know were of the Jewish faith, but it was very interesting. Like I said, very educational. Now I come from a family, and I'm not making fun at all, not at all, because I know my parents listen to this, and I would never denigrate my grandparents at all, ever. And so my mom's grandmother, I never knew my grandfather on that side, was Southern Baptist. And on the other side, my dad's parents were Southern Nazarene, which is, I think, just one step above snake handling. So I grew up, my formative years, when we were always at the grandparents' house, whenever we had leave or whatever between Air Force duties, we would go to church. And so my upbringing is Southern Nazarene or Southern Baptist. And so that's where I come from. So knowing about a Seder dinner, Seder festival, no, Seder dinner is meal is it was totally foreign to me even 2 years ago. So it was very educational.
My mother was very open about religion. She wanted me to sort of immerse myself in everything and, try to figure out what I believed. She wasn't very, they weren't very much like, this is what you believe, and here's why we believe it, and here's why you should believe it. There was nothing of that. It was mostly, look, there are different religions out there, and you should experience them. So if your friends give you the opportunity to go to church or go to synagogue or whatever, go. You don't have to feel attached. You don't have to feel anything. But just come back and we'll talk about it. That was one of the things she was pretty good about. She was very good about that sort of. And I went to, I think, Calvary Baptist. I went to Methodist. I went to Jewish, but always the go-to was Catholic. And it was an experience just to be able to sort of learn all of that. And growing up, and I think the thing that I learned is different people believe different things, even within their own religions. I mean, there are. And I've talked to folks about this, even within Judaism, there is Reform Judaism and there is ultra-Orthodox Judaism. Mm-hmm. Within Catholicism, there are different degrees of that. Within the Protestant religions, there are different degrees of those. Buddhism, whatever you want to say. And, I think the most stark example of people believe different things is Martin Luther, right? He one day said, I don't like what the church is doing, hung a sign on the door and said, we're going this way. So, I mean, there are a lot of different people believe different things. And when, if a group of people tend to believe a certain thing, then that's a church or, that's a belief, and that's fine. And I think in general, we can all get along. I mean, there are some differences, but I mean, it was good to have that sort of education because then I can go, okay, well, they sort of believe it this way. Catholicism believes in the Holy Trinity, but this form of Christianity does not. Like this form of Christianity acknowledges the Virgin Mary. This one does not. This one acknowledges the Holy Spirit. This one does not. And, it's interesting, but they all still sort of get to the same place, which is faith in a belief in a higher power and all of that. So I do thank my mom for that because I think that was a big deal when I was growing up. I think we're kind of serious now. We should change the topic.
Need to cut that shit out.
No, it was good. It was cut it out. We got to where I wanted to go, which is talking about Easter, which is good. So we had a little discussion on that. I don't know if you've been on Rob since you've been quarantining yourself, but they have a sign as you go in, And the military and the DoD and the federal government like to have recognition days, months, and weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So did you know that April is Alcohol Awareness Month?
Yes, I wrote a whole story on that.
You did. So I just want to let you know that I am aware there is alcohol.
I've always
And
found that name funny.
and I have bought a bottle of Pirat that I will enjoy starting at about 7 o'clock on my balcony. So I
Oh,
was keenly aware of alcohol today. Now I'm saying this with a touch of cynicism and a touch of sarcasm, I should say, because it feels like that has the awareness of not killing yourself in a DUI, not drinking yourself to death, not drinking and beating a spouse up, has turned into alcohol awareness. And really, I think what they're trying to focus on is your behavior when you drink, right?
right.
And how folks, react to when they drink alcohol. But you wrote your story. Tell me, what is the focus this month?
Focus is that the counselors of our Army. Man, my computer just pinging off the walls.
Yeah,
The Army
they're bugging us with their
counselors
messages.
that do the substance abuse programs, which are very important, and those are very
Very
important
important.
jobs.
Yes, they help a lot of people, and I don't want people to think my sarcasm is meant toward any of that. It is meant toward the naming of the month itself. Go
Yes,
ahead. Sir.
and but my headline was uh, Army substance abuse counselors say that April's Alcohol Awareness Month is perfectly timed because
Yes.
we
Yes.
are
Yes.
sequestered, we are quarantined,
Yes.
we are staying home more around kids, around spouses, and things
Right.
like that. And
Right.
people are going to drink more. We've all seen the pictures. You and I have seen the shelves in the class 6, the commissary, the BX,
That's right.
and the alcohol shelves are just as empty as some of the other shelves. So
Exactly.
it
Yeah,
is an important time.
and it's been brought up before. There was I think we've talked about it on the show before. There was a run on liquor when this first started, and I think there obviously are still runs on liquor, and that can contribute to a bad situation, a domestic violence situation. And again, we're getting serious again. I just wanted to make fun of the word awareness, but you're right, and that's the thing is this is happening, and people are sitting at home with sometimes nothing to do if they're not creative, and one Miller Lite can lead to another, can lead to I don't like you much, which can lead to something bad. So I mean,
Right.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
No, and that's it. That's it. So the story went on to talk about how, at least here in Europe, believe it or not,
yeah.
there's a 50-50 spread between soldiers and civilians like us, Department of Defense civilians like us,
Mhm.
here, stationed here.
Mhm.
Yet 79% of the alcohol related crimes are committed by soldiers. Uh, so
It's weird.
it's tough, and
And I
it's
and
important
look,
to know
like
that these programs exist.
I want to make fun of the name of the month because I don't think it's aptly named. Alcohol Awareness Month. Are you aware that they have beer at the shop? I mean, I
Right,
could make a million jokes, but I'm not making fun of why the month exists or the people that do it. It's important to understand that their work is very important in the military community and elsewhere where they do that work. I just think it should be called like Alcohol Abuse Awareness Month or alcohol whatever, to point to the notion that alcohol can be abused like anything else, but we just happen to be focusing on alcohol and that we sell a ton of it in the class 6 stores and on and on and on. You know what we haven't talked about much?
what's that?
Sports. We haven't talked about sports much.
Oh, that's because
What was your take? What was your take on the Tom Brady trade? We can talk trades.
we can talk trades. I
What was
don't
your
know of
take
any
on the
lately,
Tom
but
Brady trade? And how about Jameis Winston getting basically shot in the head? Wait, they traded for who?
there's a great meme saying, "Hey Tom, hello Tom, what can I do for you? Hey, I'm moving to Tampa Bay." He goes, "No kidding." Winston goes, "Hey, no kidding. I live here too. Why are you coming down?" Uh, yeah, it's I'm surprised he's going to Tampa Bay. I'm really surprised he's going there,
I am too.
but they've got oh gosh, now I can't think of his name. Is it? It's
Bruce
not Bridger,
Arians.
right? Arians, but who's the OC? Who's the offensive coordinator? I can't think of his
Bruce
name.
Arians. No, Bruce Arians is the offensive mind there. He's brilliant. He's the one who could will Jameis Winston to 5 touchdowns a game when he wasn't distracted. But Arians is the offensive mind, but maybe there is someone else there. Maybe like, is Sarkisian there or something? Steve
No,
Sarkisian?
it's former quarterback.
Gary, the guy who was in Denver, won a Super Bowl, Kubiak?
No,
No.
it's.
I know he's come back somewhere.
Oh, I mean, hold on. I've
All right,
got a computer in
let's
front of me.
move on. So
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was an interesting trade. You'll think of it when we start talking. I thought it was an interesting move because it says a couple of things. The first thing is I can't wait for the 30 for 30 on this. Whatever the documentary will be called that talks about why Brady at the tail end of his career moved to Tampa Bay. Now, this is not irregular in the NFL. Every generation believes that their quarterback should stay a Patriot forever or whatever. But Joe Montana went to Kansas City.
Right.
Joe Namath went to the Rams, I think. Ken Stabler ended up going to New Orleans. People got to work. And at some point, the club. And Houston, right. And at some point, the club says, thank you, but we feel like we've reached the end of the road with you. But people still feel like they can play. And they want to go play somewhere else. I get the impression only based on media over the last 2 or 3 years that relationship had broken down tremendously between Tom Terrific's weirdo trainer and his agent and all of the sort of odd demands that were going in the locker room. I've heard that's part of the reason why Gronk decided to retire when he retired, although Gronk was pretty broken up. When you're 6'6" or 6'8" or whatever he is, and you're just getting crushed out there, tall guys like us, parts break easier. They're harder to repair. When you have to rumble down a field, I mean, it's just a lot more than you folks who have a better center of gravity than us tall people. So,
well, Brady's never been known to rumble down a field. That's for sure.
Well, no, but Gronk was, and that's what I was talking about. But, this whole sort of weirdo thing with this trainer and this sort of voodoo notion that Tom can still play, it'll be very interesting to see how he fares in Tampa. If he was, a lot of people believe the guy was just a system quarterback. I don't want to believe that. Sorry, I'm chewing another jelly bean.
That's all right.
I don't want to believe that. I think Tom Brady is amazing. I think the teams that they played with in New England are amazing. In the same way that when I watched Joe Montana, I thought that was the greatest football team of all time. And then the Cowboys won a couple Super Bowls, and I thought the 49ers are still the greatest football team of all time. But I mean, I'm a Raiders fan, so that was a joke. But yeah. So, I just think it's an interesting move. I think this is probably his swan song. I think he says he wants to play till he's 45. But I think if he shows his ass in Tampa, I think that's gonna. And I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, he's not playing in New England anymore for Belichick." Oh, well, good luck, Tom. Have a good one.
Well, we all know Arians is a good coach, and I think if Brady,
tremendous offensive coach,
and we know Brady's going to be ready physically. So
we'll see.
So
he just looked a little slow and lethargic toward the end of the season last year.
Well, I meant as far as he'll be in shape, whether he can. If that shape is football shape, I mean, what am I trying to say here? If it's up to the caliber he needs to be in, and he's working with Byron Leftwich, who is the OC.
Is that who it is?
Yeah, who is the OC down there?
Former Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, and he's an up and comer by all accounts. As far as he's probably going to be a head coach in the next couple of years.
Interesting.
So working with Leftwich, who knows the position, who isn't too far removed from the quarterback position, and can work with Brady, has played against Brady. It'll be interesting to watch Tampa Bay this year, and it'll be interesting to see where Jameis Winston ends up.
What have the Cowboys done since all this? Have they traded anybody, free agents? I haven't been watching.
They've paid Amari Cooper like literally $100 million.
Oh, yeah, they paid him. Yeah, they backed up the truck. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they
haven't paid Dak Prescott yet, have they?
No, they put the franchise tag on him, but they grabbed a guy who's been out of football. I want to say 5 years, 3 years, because of I don't want to guess, but it was some obviously law-related thing that he's been out of football, but they grabbed him and signed him as a defensive end.
Hey, take a look at your messages real quick as you're talking to me. So yeah, the Dak Prescott thing is interesting to me that they franchised him. Because that was the conversation for like 3 weeks before the coronavirus hit was when's he going to sign this huge deal, and he never did, and he got franchised, and now there's no such thing as a big deal going there. The big thing that happened for the Raiders is they moved to Las Vegas. So, and they've signed a couple of good free agents as well. They signed friggin' Jason Witten, which is weird to me, but I guess they want some kind of veteran experience up there. It'll be interesting to see if he can still catch the ball and move down the middle of the field. But yeah, the sports thing has been interesting because I have missed it and I haven't missed it. I've missed sort of being able to come home and click on a game that I haven't seen or know the score of and sort of chill with that. Or, basketball is much harder because basketball is all played in prime time. So you can't watch a live game at all. You have to want to watch a replay of that. Baseball, you get to see live sometimes, which is cool. But football has been moving because of trades and free agency and everything else. So if you're sports people like we are, then this has been an unusual time as well. Did you see that message?
Wait. I want to go back to what you said about Jason Witten.
Okay.
He was signed by whom?
The Las Vegas Raiders.
I'm done.
You didn't know that?
No, I missed that completely. Just
he was signed
I'm
by
going to hit the button.
John Gruden.
Stop recording. I'm
John
done.
Gruden leapt over his tiny self to get to Jason Witten to me. That is hilarious. Chucky signed him fast, and now I forget. Then they signed Marcus Mariota, which is interesting because he's been saying, "Oh, I love Derek Carr. Derek Carr's my guy." Oh, is that Marcus Mariota over there who can run and probably still has an arm and is semi-competent? Let's bring him in too. I think Derek Carr felt the same way that probably Jameis Winston does, though. Pound for pound, I think Derek Carr's been a little more productive. So anyway, we don't want to get too down in the weeds with sports. We just wanted to bring up sports. No soccer, I think, going on at all in any of the big leagues, Premier or La Liga or Bundeswehr or the Bundesliga. Bundeswehr. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's not your...
not my thing.
Yeah.
I watched the World Cup, and that's about it. And I'm not making fun of it. I know it's an important sport, especially over here where we are. And even as a kid, when we were stationed in Wiesbaden, I played soccer, played football too. But
I'm a big Atlanta United fan, and I do miss those games. And they had shown the first one, I think, before, again, the virus hit. And so I was looking forward to at least seeing the replays on those. They're fun to watch. And so, yeah, I miss soccer a little bit. But sports in general, I sort of miss. But, all for the good and all that.
I still have hopes that there will be a football season.
I think there will.
I am by and far more of a football fan than anything else, both college and pro.
I miss football. I miss baseball. I like baseball a lot. You know that. Yes. And but I think we'll get a football season. I'm not sure if we'll finish the NBA season. And baseball is kind of interesting. That stupid plan that they thought of where they were going to bring all the teams out to Arizona or something and make them play in a bubble. Yeah. And they were going to basically continue the season out in Arizona because apparently stupid Rob Manfred, the commissioner, allegedly stupid Rob Manfred, the commissioner, thinks that, there's no coronavirus in the desert or, that groups of baseball players can't spread it any more than any other. I mean, it was an inane plan. And then they eventually came out and said, well, it was just something that was on the table. And all right, whatever. It was inane to begin with. So I'm not sure why they would do that. All right, we've got about 10 more minutes. What else is on your mind?
You've talked about eating jelly beans and what have you so far. How is your diet during quarantine, during teleworking?
Better, actually. So I put on more pounds than I'd like, and I've been a lot better because usually when I'm at work with you, I will get up from my desk around 12:30, go over to Pulaski, which is another Army post not too far away, but it also has a number of food choices, including the Wings Place, Burger King, Subway, the bowling dining area, the Shopette, which has pretty good pizza. The Hunt Brothers stuff is not bad. And they also have these Austin City barbecue rolled tacos, basically, that are made of brisket and cheese. So there's an abundance of food choices over there.
I have to try one of those.
But now that I was like, I got to put on a mask. I've got to go through the screening. That's deterred me from sort of eating. So I have some snacks at my desk, but nothing. I've been better about counting the calories. So as long as I'm at about 1,800 a day, I'm good. I haven't lost any weight yet, but I'm trying to get on my bike as often as I can, and because I have a little trainer set up in the house behind my desk here, and do that. So my weight is stable. It's not going up. It was before this all started. So it's just a matter of circumstance. But I'm still a fatty. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
Being diabetic, I like to stay on a fairly strict schedule. You've even heard me say that. Uh, so try to eat dinner around the same time every night.
Right,
But
right,
I'll tell
right.
you what, I eat a lot of processed foods, frozen
Ugh,
foods, things like that.
processed
Although
foods.
I've trying to break away from that, grill more, especially now that it's warmer.
Shop
Uh,
at Globus more. That's a good
yeah,
way to do that. Just get the same shit you like, but just buy it from on the German market. There is 99% less preservatives. It'll go bad faster, but it's fresher and better. I mean, I can't think of any other way to say it.
I love a good currywurst,
Me too.
and I haven't had one in a long time.
Dee Dee said they bought this pizza, I guess, from Commissary, and they ate it yesterday or the day before, and they
Without
said they'll
you,
never. Yeah, well, I won't eat processed pizza from. I will not eat it. I just won't. They said it was the worst thing they've eaten in a very long time, and they'll never eat it again. And I swore that off probably about 8 years ago. I pulled out like a Tostino's pizza. I was really hungry, and I'd bought one of these things, and I thought, well, it can't be so bad. And I bit into it, and I thought my life passed before my eyes. It was horrible. I mean, it was just one of the most horrible things I've ever put in my mouth. And I swore from then on I'd never eat another pizza out of, the freezer from X place, unless it was like $20. And I'm like, okay, I'll look at the ingredients. But if it's like one of those little $3 pizzas, they cannot jam more preservatives and stuff into that pizza that thing is just like a, mutant food product. It's just gross. So yeah, just get your foods from, if you can, from Globus, or drive out to France and go to Cora when it comes back open. They have some great stuff there, but the more fresh you can get, obviously, the better. But even if it's the packaged stuff, I think the standards are so much different. It's just that they go bad faster. So, but there's not as much preservative. That pizza that I ate in Tostino's 7 years ago, I could probably pull it out of the freezer now and still eat it. That's how much preservatives it would have. Whereas like the pizzas that we got from Globus, they weren't bad. They just had mushrooms on them. And Dee didn't like them. But they're only good for like maybe a week or so. So you got to eat them quick.
my pizza comes out of a box. That's sorry. It's quick. It's
And of course,
easy. I'm a single guy,
and
and just
congratulations to our boss who passed 100 days of not eating meat.
exactly.
That's a big deal. Yeah. In fact, today I had to go in to get my ID card, and I was talking to my friend Jim, who was in the hallway, about the chicken. We had to break away. We got to sign off with the chicken thing. So, but anyway, he said, Jim and I were talking a little bit, and then Stefan popped out with this bag of spinach. He goes, spinach! And I was like, oh, that's so sad.
That is sad. I feel bad for him now. What's funny is when we're in the office and, hey, you want to go here? You want to go here? He'll go, well, I guess they have some kind of vegan.
Did somebody mow the lawn? Have they bagged it yet? Can I get that?
No, see, I was being
make fun
truthful.
of him for
You
this all
went
the time,
there.
so.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So let's talk about the chicken. Do you know the full story of the chicken?
I
This is a good way to
watched the
close it out.
video last night, but no,
Right.
I don't know the full story of the chicken.
All right, so let's set the stage here. So our commander, as a result of the coronavirus, has been giving a live town hall to the community Tuesdays and Thursdays. These are huge. A lot of people tune in. He passes along a lot of really important, great information,
And it's all
especially
been
at the
pretty
start.
serious because we're in
And
a
it's all been pretty
serious
serious.
time. Yes.
Right. And people needed to know, gates and masks and tests and what hospitals were doing, what clinics were doing. And that's all sort of settled down now. But initially, the first 3 or 4 were in the thousands, and now they're in the hundreds. But there's still big crowds. So we were setting up for the Thursday town hall. So we're recording this on a Friday. So this was last night. We were setting up for Aaron was setting up. I wasn't. I was in the office. So Aaron was setting up for it. And at some point, our office keeps a collective messenger account where we all talk. And when you hear Keith bitching about his dinging phone, that's what's been happening.
Is that what you're
His
telling
phone's
me
been-
to check, by the way?
Yeah, the word WebAOC is on there. That's why I figured you'd want to see that. So we keep a message on that. And then at some point, there was a note about Erin talking about town hall. And then below that, she said, and literally this is what it said, expect chickens.
I saw that, and
So
I had no idea.
None of us followed up with that, which was funny because I think we all were staring at our phones going, all right, what are we thinking here, right? Are they going to bring some Popeyes from the KMC? Is somebody scared and doesn't want to? So, but nobody followed up on that. Okay. So
KMC
anyway,
is the Kaiserslautern military community where the big
right, the
GX
mall.
is. Yeah.
It's our big mall. It's a big deal. So they have a Popeyes chicken in there. So at around 5:00, there was going to be a meeting with the commander to talk, to sort of do the pregame. And Erin comes in and says, "So do you know about the chickens?" I said, "Well, I saw the words expect chickens, but beyond that, I know nothing." She says, so she explains, so again, backstory, what we're doing for kids on spring break is what the community is doing something called virtual spring break. Right. And the people who handle morale, welfare, and recreation, MWR, have sort of orchestrated this really wonderful program to do a lot of things virtually. So like I was going to teach a comic book class, but I never got my input in time. But other people have taught classes on music and other things. And one of the things that was taught was sort of a virtual farming thing. So they brought a phone out to a farm where this wonderful person, Sydney, had chickens and other things. And the chickens and the session itself was a huge hit, drew a big number. And I think it drew the biggest number of all so far for this virtual spring break.
Those jelly beans coming back on you?
A little bit. Sorry about that, folks. I don't have a mute button that's real close. So anyway, the commander said, let's get the chicken, apparently. And so the chicken was coming to be on the town hall. So when Erin comes over and says, so what do you want to do about the chickens? I said, all right, so lay this out to me. He says, well, Sydney's bringing by either some chickens or a chicken, and the commander wants to feature on the town hall. I was like, all right, cool. So maybe we do this. So I sort of outlined what I saw in my head as a way to sort of feature the chicken, feature Sydney, who obviously has gone up, an extra mile to take care of kids and, do this for us. And then get back to the business at hand, which was for this particular session, which was talking about the chapel activities for Easter and some issues that the sergeant major had. Okay. So we sort of mapped it out. But the only thing we didn't know, well, there were two factors we didn't know. One was how many chickens, which is always fun. And the second was what they would be brought in. So there were three scenarios for that. Either they'd be brought in some sort of open sort of pen cage. And that's great because we could see the chickens walking around and they'll be, the whole thing. Or they'll be brought in like a dog kennel, which turned out to be the one that was brought. Or they'll just be walked in like in somebody's arms, right? So turned out they came in the dog kennel, so that was no big deal. But then one of the things that got discussed beforehand, and this is how I should caveat this, and if you're of a certain age, this will make sense. Somebody said, hey, did you guys see Rocky 2? And we were like, yeah.
That's how he trains.
He said, I could chase the chicken. And I was like, wait a minute.
The commander said that?
There were a couple of ideas. So that was one, was he could chase the chicken around the conference room and, we could sort of do that until he caught the chicken. But then I thought we'd be doing this for like 15 minutes and people would be like, this is great, but when's the library opening or whatever, right? So it was a fun idea. It was never considered serious. But one of the actual ideas that was seriously considered was, and Stefan will appreciate this, is instead of between two ferns, we just do the whole town hall as between two chickens. And we were going to do this if they had brought two chickens in separate cages. We would just put one on one end, one on the other, and make them sit in between. But what happened was Sydney ended up bringing one Polish hen, this sort of beautiful tall bird. It has this really cool headdress, and it's really neat. And we ended up starting on that and doing the whole thing. So the chicken was a part of the star of the town hall last night. It was a lot of fun, and I still think we ended up getting like 350 or 360 viewers. So it was a good night. We're still relaying important information. We're still relaying stuff that folks need to know. It's still coming from what I believe is the most trusted source in the entire military community, who is being open and transparent about it. And you get to see a chicken. Good deal.
So that's what it's all about. Okay.
That's
now I know.
So now you know. Did you see the sign? Did you see the little sign I made that
Yes,
started?
yes, I did. Yes, I
Did
did.
Army Town Hall Chicken Takeover? Yeah, that was
That
funny.
was there. Yeah, it was there at the beginning of the thing. Yes,
That's right. Yeah,
very
yeah.
good.
But I think people will like, because we started, because they said, oh, we'll just start. We'll keep it for about 20 seconds on the chicken. And then we'll come up and the colonel will do his thing. And we thought, okay, that's a good idea. But I think we didn't probably preview it well enough for the folks who were like ready to watch, because they were just like, why is there a chicken? What's going on? And the chicken was kind of quiet. So it wasn't like, it was just like,
They should have just set it on the table and just let it walk
thought
around.
about that, but then the thing was, if it had started running around, and City was saying, "Oh, the chicken's calm; it's not a problem." But yeah, it was good. So, all right, we need to wrap it up. What else you got? Anything else?
Not today.
Any
No,
big plans for the weekend?
mowing my lawn, and
Yeah,
I think I may go. Based on a previous episode, I may go walk the golf course.
See, bring your voice recorder, because I want to you got to just do some. And what we can do is you can do that, and we could comment on it as you're talking about it. So that would be fun. All right, folks, don't forget, if you want to get This Show's a Joke, you'll find it on iTunes, Sprecher, Spotify, where we've got decent numbers there. We've actually had like 40 or 45 downloads through Spotify.
Oh, wow.
We are also available through a number of other venues, but we're easy to find. Just look for This Show is a JK in your Google or in your DuckDuckGo or wherever you search, and we'll come up pretty quickly. We encourage you to subscribe on iTunes. Huh?
DuckDuckGo? You made that up.
Go to duckduckgo.com, and I'm not making it up, and you interrupted my flow. So search for us, and you'll be able to subscribe on iTunes or through Spotify. And if you can leave a review, please do. Again, that helps us get churned into the better algorithm and all of those things. Any last things, pal?
Yes, I interrupted you because Witten's going to the Raiders. That's why.
That's pretty funny. Thanks, folks, for listening. And we will be back on Tuesday and Thursday of next week, because that's the regular schedule we're going to say. Say goodbye, pal.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye, y'all.